Chapter 15 Symbols 7th day of the 3rd month, 700th year. Come in, the fragile voice called before breaking into a rasping cough. Dragatu entered the dome house quickly. Who is it? Croaked Jolnus between coughs. It's me, Dragatu. Jolnus squinted, trying to focus his aged eyes, but all he could make out was a blurred figure. It sounded like Dragatu, but the silhouette was bigger. He pointed to a cup of water. Dragatu moved to the table as Jolnus sat up, the makeshift bed in the living room, creaking as he did. Dragatu grabbed the cup, knelt beside the bed, and held the drink steadily as the old man sipped. You seem different, Jolnus asked as he handed the cup back, his voice still raspy, with the coughing fit under control. I'll explain everything soon, Dragatu replied. First, focus on your breathing and take some more water. He passed the cup back, keeping a caring eye on the old man. Jolnus was the worst he had been, his once proud stature reduced to a bedridden old man in just a couple of months. It saddened Dragatu to see him like this. Is that better? Dragatu asked. Yes, thank you. Why do you look different? Is it to do with what happened to your brothers? Dragatu was happy to tell him everything he could. Jolnus listened intently, propped up with cushions against the wall, eyes shut and nodding occasionally. His bushy eyebrows rose with fascination as he tried to imagine the miraculous visitation with the little information Dragatu could give. When Dragatu finished, there was a pause. Jolnus turned his head slowly and opened his eyes, breaking the brief silence. Who would have thought such things were possible? Freta made the right choice when she went against me to keep you in her life. You have been good for her, and I know she's been good for you. I have 2 requests of you, Dragatu. Dragatu leant forward, shuffling his knees close to the bed. What can I do? Look after Freta. Keep her safe, and give her a better life than I did. I will, sir. Secondly, let's see that fire gift of yours. Well, as best as I can, he added, coughing a little and chuckling. Dragatu smiled kindly and nodded. He took the wooden cup, put it on the floor, and searched the room. Finding a metal sheet, he placed the cup on it and inhaled deeply. He concentrated hard and set the cup on fire. It quickly burned to ashes. My, Jolnus exclaimed. Once more for an old man? Dragatu hesitated. He had suddenly become very tired, and he couldn't refuse. He looked around again, but couldn't see anything else. Jolnus noticed and pointed to an ornament that was on a small table. Dragatu went over to it and picked it up. Holding the dark yellow rock, he wondered if he could even set it on fire. Will that work? Jolnus asked. I don't know, but I'll give it a try, Dragatu said, making up his mind. He placed the yellow rock on the metal sheet and drew a deep breath until his lungs were full. He focused all his energy on the rock, exhaling slowly as he did. Sweat broke out on his forehead, and he began to shake. The flame seemed to be glowing out of the rock, making a glowing yellow ball of fire. Dragatu's concentration waned, and he felt dizzy. The rock began to glow brighter. He let out a giant burst of energy, lost control, fell sideways, and blacked out. Dragatu, please wake up. His head thumped, and every muscle ached as he stirred. He opened his eyes and saw Freta crouched over him. Smiling weakly, he cradled his head with one hand, trying to rub the soreness away. He looked up at her and saw confusion and grief written on her face, tears caressing her cheeks as they fell. Sitting up too quickly, he went to ask what was wrong, but Freta threw herself around him, hugging him tightly. Dragatu looked beyond her and saw Jolnus on the bed, lying still, chest no longer struggling to rise and fall. He bowed his head and squeezed Freta a little. She sobbed in his arms, and he looked up again, seeing a small smile on Jolnus' face. He let himself smile weakly in return, knowing he had given an incredible show for Jolnus before he died. A few moments passed, then Freta managed to control her sobbing. She pushed herself back, and Dragatu dropped his arms. Turning, she sat beside him and spoke. What happened to father? What happened to you? You're so different. Is it like what happened to your brothers? Dragatu repeated his story quickly, telling her how he had got a gift from the Creator too. He explained that Jolnus had asked to see it, and that the gift took energy. Please keep this weakness a secret. I need to be seen as strong. I won't tell anyone, Freta said. Thank you. I must have passed out. I'm so sorry. He hugged her again and glanced at the metal sheet. His eyes opened wide. The rock had liquidized and re-solidified. It was an even deeper dark yellow now, and reminded him of the messenger. He decided when he had the time and more strength, he would burn some again, and see if he could make it shine like the messenger's strange apparel and weapon. I didn't even get a chance to say goodbye, Freta said, and sniffed. He was always proud of you, Dragatu replied. You meant everything to him. He knew you loved him. I know, she said heavily, pulling herself away. I need some food and water, Dragatu said, beginning to feel dizzy again. They both struggled to their feet, Dragatu's head nearly touching the ceiling. They stepped to her father and whispered a farewell. Freta kissed him on his forehead and pulled the blanket to cover him until he was buried. With this done, they walked through to the back and turned right into the small kitchen. They sat in silence while Dragatu ate a massive portion of food. When he finished, he looked up and gave Freta a weak smile. I'll always be here for you, he said, if you want me to. Of course I do, she said passionately. There was a moment of silence as they looked knowingly at each other, their emotions speaking for them. Dragatu, can I see your gift? Freta asked after the silence. I'm so tired, he said apologetically. I need to sleep first, but then I'll show you. Okay, she said with a nod. They went to Freta's room, opposite the kitchen, and Dragatu lay on her bed. He took up most of the space, but she squeezed in and snuggled beside him. It was mid-afternoon, but they slept. Dragatu fell asleep straight away, but Freta lay still for a while, thinking, but emotional exhaustion eventually took her. When Dragatu woke, it was almost night, and Freta was gone. He guessed she had left to tell friends the sad news. His muscles still ached, and he rose slowly. With great effort, he went to the kitchen and made some food. Hearing noises from the back, he took the food and found Freta sitting on the back step, watching a neighbour digging the grave. Dragatu sat next to her, and she buried her head in his arm. A few minutes passed, and Dragatu stirred, making Freta sit up. Without a word, he stood and walked over to the man, took the shovel, and began digging. The man nodded and left. Seeing what Dragatu was doing, Freta walked to stand beside him. You don't have to do this if you're too tired. I'm okay, Dragatu replied. It would be an honor. She gave him a weak smile and turned, walking towards one of the unlit torches that had been stuck into the ground, ready to dispel the approaching dark of night. Dragatu noticed, walked over to her, put an arm around her shoulder and smiled softly. Watch, he whispered. He looked at the torch with his deep red eyes, and it burst into flames. Freta gasped and let out a small laugh of amazement. I'm glad Father got to see it before he died, she said, sobering. Dragatu nodded and kissed her lightly on the forehead. He turned back to the grave and continued digging. Freta used the flaming torch to light more and sat on the steps, watching him. When the grave was finished, it was late, and they went back to bed. 8th day of the 3rd month, 700th year. The sun's radiant face hovered above the horizon and filled the room with hazed light. Dragatu lay next to Freta, watching her sleep. Her beauty was captivating. As he watched, he hoped her sleep was free from thoughts of death. Half an hour went by, and she woke. With a yawn, she turned and smiled at him, then remembered her loss. I hoped it was only a nightmare. Dragatu stroked her hair softly with the back of his hand. Thank you, she whispered, her voice full of emotion. She took a controlled breath and sat up, swinging herself to perch on the side of the bed, holding the edge with both hands. After a pause, she stood up. Dragatu saw the effort and sadness in her movements. He got up too, followed her to the kitchen, and they made breakfast. The burial was that afternoon, and the hours passed slowly. At the burial, neighbours and friends came to pay their respects. Last of all, Freta said her final goodbye. With the farewell spoken, they buried Jolnus, reading several passages from the Book of Law as the grave was filled. Once everyone had left, Freta and Dragatu went inside the house. Freta went for a nap, and Dragatu updated his journal. He wrote about how he was going to miss Jolnus, and how he had discovered the yellow rocks could be made into a precious metal. 11th day of the 3rd month, 700th year. The next few days were spent setting Jolanus' affairs in order. They agreed that Freta would now stay with Dragatu, and she moved into a spare room on the top floor, next to Hilana's room. Dragatu knew what it was like to lose a father, so did everything he could to support Freta. During the difficult days that followed, they distracted each other with talk of adventures and planned trips to the forest and hills. He also told Freta about the yellow stones, but hadn't had a chance to change any more. Dragatu also spoke with his brothers briefly to tell them about Jolanus. They agreed to wait a few more days before they would have a discussion about the gifts. In their brief chat, Dragatu listened intently as Phenon described how he had overcome his fear of the pain that came with his healing gift. He ecstatically described how the joy of being able to help people had won over the fear of pain. Phenon also said how fun it was to show people his hair burst into the array of orange shades in the sunlight. Unitas had stayed quiet most of the time, but did express his and Tessia's heartfelt condolences. 17th day of the 3rd month, 700th year. The brothers finally met in the house library and enjoyed the familiar ambience and aroma of the old scrolls and books. The memories ignited by this place were beyond precious. Unitas started the meeting, and Dragatu's gaze lingered on his two brothers. The colour changes to their hair and eyes were going to take some getting used to. I'm glad we can meet like this. It's important that we do so often. This way, we can work together to help the people as we promised. Does this sound like a good idea? Phenon and Dragatu agreed. I propose every 2 weeks, Dragatu said, trying to make his presence felt. Assuming I'm not away at the hills. Phenon nodded, but Unitas shook his head and expressed his concern. 2 weeks is good, but I don't think you should go to the hills as much. You'll be needed here a lot more now. I'll go if I want to go, Unitas, Dragatu said with a frown. But don't worry, when I'm here I'll attend our meetings and help as much as I can. If that's what you think is best, Unitas said, not wanting to cause an argument, and continued with the topics he wanted to discuss. Our first mission is to make sure all the people know about our gifts, and that they are to help the people. We should continue to use our gifts as much as possible. This will allow the people to become familiar with them. It's important we don't come across as too different or intimidating. The last statement was subtly aimed at Dragatu. Some people were already wary of his sometimes overbearing gusto, but his increase in size and strength made more people nervous of him. Dragatu knew this, but ignored Unitas' statement. He didn't see the problem. Their behavior was a sign of respect. Such respect had worked for fighting the lions, for leading the Hanora, for getting his friends to help others, and for continuing the goals to honor his father. Dragatu paid no heed and simply matched Phenon's nod. Phenon then spoke up with an idea. We should have some way to tell everyone that our gifts are to help them. They should know they can ask for our help any time. Dragatu shuffled in his chair. I don't like the idea of them always being allowed to approach us, he said. I think that could hinder us. It should be okay, Unitas said. I don't see a problem with it. Dragatu sat back and shook his head. How will we have time to listen to every person that comes up to us, he thought, but kept quiet. A few more points were discussed, and the meeting closed. They decided to send out parchment declarations, and this would inform the whole nation about their gifts. Unitas went to the scribers to get the declarations written up, but the scribers said the work and cost would be too great. After some discussion, they agreed on a better way. They decided to erect large wooden posts throughout the nation and attach this and future declarations to them. Unitas left the mock declaration with the scribers so they could write up a couple hundred copies. He then walked to the letter distributors. Once the scribers had written up the declarations, the distributors would attach them to each post on their rounds. It was a busy day for Unitas, and after mapping out key points in the nation, he employed some builders to construct and direct the posts. First day, the 4th month, 700th year. Dragatu's concerns had been right, and he pressed the fact at the next meeting, which took place in the library again. I told you, he said, shrugging his shoulders. It's too much to have the people coming up to us with every little thing. There must be more control and order. Okay, you were right, Unitas said with no animosity. We'll have to change how we do this. Phenon and I have barely been able to move since we sent out the declaration. Dragati spoke, trying hard to take the lead. I've been thinking about it. We should set up 2 days a week where people can visit us. We could use a field. This will give us the space we need. It means on the other days we will have free time and actually be able to help the people without being swarmed by them in the streets. Unias and Phenom saw the logic. They nodded their agreement, and Dragati continued to speak. What will make this easier is some sort of symbol and art that represents each of us. This can be put on banners at the field. The banner will let them choose who they think will be able to help with their specific problem. This way we can deal with the problems individually. If it turns out to be a big problem, we can bring it here to our meetings and discuss it. That's a good plan, Phenom said. I agree. Good work, Dragati, Unias said. We can design our symbol for the next meeting. I'll send out a declaration tomorrow, telling the people that they should stop coming up to us unless it is an emergency. I'll also explain the new way for them to see us, and to look out for another declaration, telling them when we'll start those meetings. Phenom nodded several times and smiled. Dragati simply inclined his head. The meeting adjourned, and Dragati was excited that his banner idea had worked. He'd already come up with a few ideas. Unias had inspired the idea for the banners, and for his own symbol. Unias had always been interested in symbolism, especially in some of his drawings. Dragati remembered Unias saying symbolism could get a lot of information across in a simple way, depending on the symbol, the context, and what ideas were attached to it. Dragati wanted to use the symbol idea to show some intelligence, and that there was more to him than his strength. Over the following 2 weeks, the brothers continued building the foundations to help people. As always, Dragati spent most of his time around the richer area, or amongst the Orpits, trying to help people. They would often shout for him to use his fire gift, but he only did so on rare occasions. He wanted to retain a level of mystery, and frequent use in front of people might give away its limitations. 14th day of the 4th month, 700th year. When it was time to show the symbols, Dragati took the lead. Surrounded by the yellowing scrolls and dusty books, he held up a large piece of parchment and explained what he had drawn. I have chosen the triangle because it's the strongest structure, Dragati said. Unias had often declared this was when building the supports for the channel of the water project. The triangle is a symbol of strength and represents the strength I've been gifted with. The circle is a symbol of my leadership. My leadership, help, protection encircles the people like a circle. I have repeated the symbol inside itself because I wanted to represent the infinity of these ideas and that they will go on forever through the children I'll have one day. As for the colours, I wanted them to represent me too. The black in the bottom right of the triangles is for my black hair. The red at the top represents my eyes, and the yellow on the left corner represents Fretta's hair and her importance to me. The flames around the symbol show my fire gift, and the word at the bottom will be my motto. He had written the words strength, power, and control below the symbol. Interesting, Dragati said, trying to hide a frown. Interesting, Unias said, trying to hide a frown. He was concerned with some of the explanations, but tried to be patient with Dragati's way of doing things. I see a lot of thought has gone into it, Unias said. It's very impressive. Dragati smiled at the compliment and put the parchment on the floor next to his chair, and he sat down. I will show you mine now, Unias said, and held up his drawing as he remained in his chair. The spiral coming from the centre has lines in it. These lines are important and represent a sequence of numbers found in nature. It starts at the number 1, and then you add that to the previous, which at the start would be 0. Then you have the number 1 again, and add the 2 ones together, and have the number 2. You add 2 to its previous number, and have 3. The pattern is repeated, and you get 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and so on. The spiral and these numbers symbolize progression and the need to grow. The spiral and lines have been placed in a circle symbol that represents balance. Life is full of opposites, like the black and white you can see. I added it to show that balancing the opposites of life is vital, and that in reality there are no opposites. They are simply part of a whole. The symbol also conveys that if we balance the strengths and weaknesses of our own personality, we'll be able to help others the best we can. The green branches and flowers around the symbol represent nature, and the theme that we need to grow with nature. It is interesting that both Dragati and I have written philosophies in the form of a motto. I have written, chose, choice, choose. I did this because I wanted to represent the importance of free will, The past tense you chose, the present tense you have a choice, and the future tense you have to choose all represent the ideas of free will. These words also have symbolic representation of the self, and how the past, present, and future add together to make up our personalities. Dragati ran a hand through his thick black hair and stroked his short beard. Some of the description had confused him, and he was slightly frustrated that Eunyalus' symbol looked so good. Finon, on the other hand, was feeling very inadequate. He quickly scribbled down a motto of 3 words on his parchment and looked up with a sheepish smile. It was his turn. This is my symbol, he said, as he tried to keep the parchment still, no shaking through his hand. The outline of the bird represents the phoenix gift, and its white colour symbolizes purity. Dragati smirked in his mind. What is purity compared to strength? The single eye in the centre of the chest is meant to represent that we should look after everyone, and that we are all the same. The heart-shaped pupil in the eye shows we should love everyone with all our hearts. I've added compassion, charity, and love, which are the 3 words like yours. The heart pupil is orange to represent my new eye colour and my hair colour when in the sun. And I guess that's about it, he said weakly, and gave a nervous smile. That's very good, Finon, Eunyalus said. I love the simplicity. It's exactly what symbolism should be. Simple, and conveys your meaning well. I like it a lot. Finon's round cheeks turned red, and he put the parchment face down on his lap. Thank you, he said modestly. Dragatu gave a faint smile to Finon. It is very good, he said with a half smile. However, he couldn't help but consider his brother's nervousness. If Finon was this nervous about showing a simple symbol, how could he be a leader of the people? I like what we've done here, Eunyalus said. The symbols are exactly what they need to be. Once they are on banners, they will help the people know who to go to when we have our days to be visited. Now that's dealt with, I want to discuss a new project I think will be good for all the people. Dragati shifted in his chair to get comfortable. I think we should improve all the buildings and houses. We can use granite instead of bricks, and this would mean fewer repairs. I want to do it to decrease the gap between rich and poor. There will most likely always be some division, but I want to reduce that gap to stop such things as pride and jealousy. This way the people will see each other as equals and treat each other with more kindness and respect. Dragatu saw a flaw in the idea and interrupted. How are we to afford such a massive project? It will take a lot of time and effort to do every single house. Plus, the only place to find granite is beyond the ore pits. This would take an incredible amount of labour. I have thought about your concern, and I believe there is a way, Eunyalus countered. If we work together, as we have before, we can make this work. I feel very strongly that we have to do this. Equality is important, but it is also vital that we improve the homes of the poorest people. Some of the conditions they live in are unacceptable. A debate ensued about cost and equality, in which Dragati's patience ran very thin. This would be so much easier if I were leading by myself, he suddenly thought, and drummed his fingers on the arm of his chair. I know it's supposed to be good that we're different, but all this discussion is slowing down the ability to act. A faint memory of his father's request to work with his brothers grazed his thoughts. He sighed to himself and noticed Eunyalus had finished making a point. Taking a deep breath, Dragati spoke up and made his point again, trying to honour Brannan's request at the same time. After nearly an hour, a compromise was made. Making all the houses out of granite was too much work. It was decided that the bricks houses in the rich area and some of the affluent poorer people would get granite houses. Then the bricks taken from the old houses would be used to improve the houses of the poor. Eunyalus was concerned that the gap between rich and poor would still be too noticeable, but Dragati had convinced him it would be okay. The priority is to improve the houses, he said. Complete equality can come later. Satisfied with Dragati's reasoning, they theorized a plan. The work would be in stages, just like the water project, and begin in the very center of the nation. This was shown on a map by an imaginary line where they felt the richer part finished and the poorer part started. Those in that area would have to move in with other family or friends while the work was done. With the area clear, the workforce, led by Dragatu and the Honora, would begin transporting granite and building the new houses. The granite would be built around the houses, and the bricks would be taken down when the main structure was finished. The bricks would then be taken and used to build new houses for the poorer people. I have already communed with the animals of the farms and in the forests, and they are willing to help, Eunyalus told them, but only if they are treated with respect and fed and watered well. We should send out 2 declarations, one to explain the plans we've constructed, asking the people if they feel it's a good idea. The second to confirm the days for us to see the people with any concerns, worries, or ways we can help them. The meeting concluded, and Eunyalus took the drawings for the banners to the loom workers and cloth makers. 23rd day of the 4th month, 700th year. 3 large tents stood boldly in the field. One was the lively green of fresh grass, one a passionate red like the brick houses, and the last as orange as a sunset. Each tent was crowned with a banner that flapped in the wind. Today was the first official meeting with the people, and hundreds had gathered. They looked at the symbols with amazement, commending their beauty and discussing what they represented. It was a long day for the 3 brothers, and as the sun set, they told people to come back the next day. By the time everyone had left, night had fallen. The brothers sat outside Finon's tent, wrapped in warm furs, to fight off the cooling air. They are very happy we've set apart days to see them, Finon said, beginning the debriefing. Everyone does seem happy about it, Eunyalus agreed. He looked at Dragati for confirmation, and Dragati nodded. How did people take the ideas of the new project, Eunyalus continued. People seemed happy enough, Dragatu said. They know it will be a lot of work, but most of them who came to me wanted to help. Finon? Eunyalus asked. Lots of people I spoke to loved the idea, but feel they won't be able to pay back such a gift. Well, they can help build the houses, Dragatu said. It's not that simple, Finon replied hesitantly. They have to work almost all day just to provide for themselves. To take time off would leave them in a worse place than before. Well, the richer people can help provide the food and water the workers will need, Eunyalus said, trying to mediate. Assuming the rich people can actually agree to do that, Dragatu thought cynically. It will still work even if we don't have that help from the richer people, Eunyalus continued. We will find a way. However, there is something we hadn't thought about. Some people who came to see me said they were happy with their houses and didn't want them changed. I think we must make sure everyone knows they have a choice. But from today's meeting, it's clear the majority of people want the improvement. This means we can start the hard work soon. He paused, leaning back in his chair. There was one final idea that someone brought to my attention. This was the opportunity to improve the infrastructure of water distribution. We have enough, but most of it goes to the reservoir. If we incorporate plans to channel the water to a few key points within the nation, then people won't have to travel so far. Dragati smiled and nodded. Finally, a practical and achievable goal, he thought. It was clear that they all liked the idea, and it was nice to agree on something. Finon especially loved the idea, as he knew how much this would help the poor. Over the coming weeks, the fine details of the new project were made. The brothers saw a lot of enthusiasm from the people, and enjoyed watching them come closer together thanks to this unified purpose. In turn, it helped bring them closer together. Each day they clung to the knowledge they were honouring their father and the Creator. It brought them happiness and motivation in the face of the hard work that was ahead. Such hardship was worth it though. The water project and their many experiences had taught them there were few things worth having that didn't require hard work. With Honrus, Rion, and Linno's help, Dragatu had recruited all the previous Honora that still lived, and added some new ones too. However, despite appearing completely committed to this project, Dragatu had been struggling. The inner debate finally came to a conclusion as he sat alone thinking in the library. His journal opened on his lap, he decided to write. The responsibilities and new project are taking up so much time. I really could do with a break at the hills. I also want to practice turning the yellow stones into precious metal. I don't have the time or the energy. I hate waiting. I have so much I want to do, but keep getting pulled away. I know that people must come first, but it's difficult as I feel torn. I'll have to use my fire gift as much as possible until I do get some free time, but who knows when that'll be. Meanwhile, Eunyalus worked with Tessia to organize the animals. They prepared them for the transportation of granite, from the canyons beyond the ore pits. They also recruited people who would look after the animals and make sure they were treated well. Finon helped by healing any workers he could and tried to recruit people from the poorer areas, but these were few. His concerns had been right, and they couldn't afford to give up their time. After knowing this for certain, Finon repeated Eunyalus' original request to Dragatu. They want to help, but can't. If you could ask a few of the richer people to give up some of their excess, then we can have more workers. Most people won't give away what's theirs, Dragatu replied. But I will try. Just don't get your hopes up. Okay, thank you so much for trying. To Dragatu's surprise, a lot of the richer families were willing to sacrifice what was theirs. They did make sure it was for the project only, and contracts were written up. 21st day, the 5th month, 700th year. The large caravan of people and animals moved eastward, spreading between ore pits and houses like the roots of a tree. Dragatu led the Honora with Freta at his side. Finon walked with the workers from the poorer areas, and Eunyalus and Tessia walked amongst the animals. Scattered around and in between these three groups were more workers from many different trades. The project had begun, and as the sun beat down, they made their first trip to the quarry, the granite.